Andrew, here we are in the season of money. People are looking at tax returns being due. People who are associated with businesses are thinking about what they've actually got to pay off, or all sorts of things at this time of year. Campaigns, Christian companies and organisations and churches are also thinking about their finances. How do you go about, as a church planter, in creating a sense of generosity in a congregation that might be feeling pulls from all sorts of directions?
Yeah, good. 3 Ps. Here we go. I don't normally do these. It's always the same in many areas of ministry. It's the preach, pray pattern. And so how do you go about creating a climate and culture of generosity? You preach for it, you pray for it, you pattern. You live your life modelling. And so preach. Just take the first one. I preach for generosity, which means I preach the gospel. Though rich became poor. It's the 2 Corinthians 8 and 9. It's the picture of salvation that's been won for us by Christ, so that I'm saved to be saved from living for self, that I might be one who lives for others generously. So it's preach the gospel, preach salvation, and be praying about that as a culture, and pattern it, seek to model it in my own life. I was blessed to have been in a church where the leader of the church was incredibly generous and just spontaneously would give of himself and his funds, his finances. People were in need. He personally would support their needs and so on, and didn't make a song and dance about it, but it was the kind of thing that was hard to hide eventually. It was just, his practice around the place. So the preach, pray and pattern, I think, is critical. And just a couple of things in terms of practicalities, I'd say as well. I think create the culture of course. The culture of course. I remember years ago being in a church where a young woman was offering for missionary service in quite a dangerous area. And there were a few congregation members who were expressing concern about this being irresponsible and so on. But I remember the leader of the church, he gave a sense that, without denying the risks and dangers, but he gave a sense of course you'd take risks. Of course you'd go into dangerous places, because look what Jesus did for us. And it was quite telling, I think, that he thought like that and there was no oddity about it. And I've kind of taken that into what we do here. I want to seek to create the culture of course. Of course you'd give up. Of course you'd spend yourself. Of course you'd use your money generously for others. And of course you'd go, so it's the widow's mite, Luke chapter 20, the temple courts there, the one who gave all, she was the one who was being generous. I mean, Jesus made a hero of that person to create the climate of course you'd give. When heaven and hell are at stake, when the cross is the work of Jesus who gave up everything for us, and when time is so short and when money's not ours, of course you'd give it away.
The generosity you're talking about isn't actually just financial, is it?
And I think that's the last point I'd make, unless you've got other questions.
No, please.
I think the last point I make is it's actually not about money. The whole culture of generosity is not about money in the end. In that, we've run campaigns to raise funds. We've done them 4 times now to raise significant amounts of money. We've never called them fundraisers. We've always called them giving campaigns. And this is probably the insight of someone else I've stolen, but we call it a giving campaign because it's actually not about the funds. It's about creating a climate and culture of disciples who give of themselves, of their money. And so we talk often in those occasions about our deep and genuine desire that whatever money we receive is secondary to the impact it has on each of us to become givers, to be generous, to be Christ-like people, so that our giving of funds is an overflow of a heart that's desiring to give all for the work of the gospel. Now, the more you can create that climate, the more you get people wanting to give. And there's a few things that you can do actually to break that culture. One of them is to say thank you. I think I've said this in a number of occasions, but gee, it bugs me. There are little things we can do that actually will undermine the very gospel culture that the New Testament seeks to create. It's interesting, Paul in Philippians, he doesn't thank the Philippians for their gift because it simply met his need. What he's excited about is the evidence that demonstrates that they've been captured by Jesus properly. So it's really not about his needs being met, because he was, whether rich, poor, whatever his circumstance, God was enough for him. So he makes that point to the Philippians. It's not about their money and what he needs. It's about what's happened to them, that they're generous, they've changed, they've captured Christ. There's the climate we want to convey.
Mate, we want to thank God for allowing you to be part of this morning. I'm really going to be careful I make sure I use the word thank you appropriately.
Yes, that's right.
But I want to say too that teaching generosity, by the way that I guess you, your family and the church around you has modelled it, is as powerful as anything you can say on video. So thanks very much.